This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for all coming. We have 8 members. That's fantastic. First up is approval of the minutes of October 12th. They were in the packet. Anybody who was here, I think Joe was the only one who wasn't here. I need a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes from October 12th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. One abstention, John McCart. Okay. Public speak. We have a public.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Right. I'm Barbara Walbert from the Lathrop community, and I'm also representing the Kestrel Land Trust here. And I'm here to give you a heads up, because for your December meeting, we will be presenting a proposal for invasives removal on the CR land on both Lathrop campuses, which is a total of 103 acres. All of it ecologically important and connected to other CR land. 78 of those acres belong to Easthampton, and Kestrel holds the land trust on it. Kestrel Land Trust holds the CR on it. So what we're going to come to ask you for is $99,000 for a 3-year plan to bring, and we're going to apply simultaneously to the town of Northampton for a collaborative project to bring all of these CR lands that we've worked on for 10 years up to a high level of native plants to support wildlife. Research says that land dominated by invasive plants may have up to 90% less wildlife than land dominated by native plants, because our wildlife has evolved to use native plants. So Lathrop wants to make our 103 acres of conserved land a refuge for wildlife in an environment that is increasingly invaded. We've made a lot of progress. We've had an inventory done by Land Stewardship Inc. last fall, which showed us where our invasives were, what they were, how dense they are, maps and everything, and then what's the treatment. And so on the basis of that inventory, we have constructed a 3-year plan, and that's what we're coming to you for. Lathrop will make a substantial contribution of its own, and we will also include some public programming. So this is the heads up. That's what's coming down the pike. We hope you'll have enough money and own this.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I have one communication. We got a unfortunate from Stewart down at the coalition. We are not going to get any surplus funds this year, and the DOR has already delayed our November 15th distribution. So whatever our estimate was is what's going to happen. We're not going to get anything extra this year.
Can you remind us what that percentage is?
What do you do, Jamie? I don't have it.
I don't have the commitment. I can pull it up, but it's what we budgeted for. I think was a 20% match, and then we put in like the not available for this year's fiscal year. I think is an additional 20%. I'm not sure right now that we're going to get the full 20%.
Ever?
No, so hopefully, and typically they let us know by November 15th what we're going to get. But at this point, we may not get what we budgeted for.
The state is running a deficit, 180 million this month, 300 million more since, I got this from Stewart down at the coalition, since the beginning of the fiscal year. So they don't have money to hand out to the. Anyway, that's difficult news, given that we now have many requests for funds. Okay.
We budgeted a 30% first round match and a 30% second round match.
We put that in the budget.
That's how we budgeted it. So we budgeted that we'd get $195,000 from the state.
So what if they don't
not
give
what
us?
we're getting.
We don't know what we're getting because they haven't told us what their calculations are yet. They haven't even completed their calculations yet.
So for the 30% first match, we still don't know what that number is, or that one is confirmed?
we don't know what
We
that
don't
number.
No, they haven't said anything.
Theoretically, they could come back and say, we only have a 20% match in the first round, but then in the second and third round, we get an additional 10%, which would bring us up to what we budgeted as our first round match. This is why we budget the first round, but then we don't budget the second and third round.
Okay,
Got it.
we should hit that. Don't know though.
We're gonna try.
Just another announcement, the city council did approve our last two, the new city playground and city space, appropriation, so those are done. So, you have anything else? I don't want to go into account balances and open project updates unless you have anything, Jamie.
It's included in the folder, so.
Okay. Discussion of December meeting. It's now scheduled for December 14th. I have no problem with it. Anybody have a problem with that date? And I have to say, it's going to be this exact group here that we're going to be making decisions on. So all 9 of you would be great to be there, and I'd like to see all 9 of you. It's my last meeting.
I would love to be there. It's the last night of Hanukkah. It also happens to be my kid's birthday. So for that date, I didn't realize that we, had approved moving it from the 3rd Thursday back, I guess, in January, but
I could go to the 21st, but what will that do to people?
I can't be here on the
Not
21st. Absolutely not. Sorry.
How about,
I can't be here the 14th.
Thursday, the second Thursday.
how about the 13th, Wednesday?
I can do that.
If I had anything, it'd be a council meeting, a finance meeting, and that would be before this in the same room, so I'm okay with it. Anybody else, the 13th?
Works.
Anybody say no to the 13th?
I have no idea. Depends on when the.
I gotta talk to my, I think it'll be, I gotta talk to my wife, but I think it'll be okay.
What did you say?
I don't know about the field, may have a park and rec meeting. I'm not sure when that's gonna get to.
Okay,
But I mean, that's a big meeting.
it is a big meeting. So all of you who are in the room, the 13th is the next meeting. Tonight's a discussion of all your presentations. That meeting is a vote night. I certainly want you to be here. Okay. Okay, so we've just moved it to the 13th,
At 6:30 PM.
6:30. If I have a finance meeting, I need the time here.
Yep.
Right here.
Okay.
Now,
I think. we'll have to-
Barbara, have anybody in there?
The historical commission will need to negotiate with them.
Well, how can John be here? The Historic Commission is here at 6:30.
I'm also supposed to be there too, but we'll rearrange the historical commission.
John, did you know that? Okay, we'll keep it to 13th until further notice. All right, that's done. Okay. We have 1, 2, 3 fairly large applications. We have considerable amount of money in the affordable housing account, but there is a considerable requests. So it's important that you present. It's important that you look at your financing to say, what happens if you don't get it all? And I'm just being right up front with the fact that there's only so much cash in the budget. So we'll start with community builders. Now try your sharing. This is the 385 Main Street project.
As I am sharing, I'm back past the Dropbox.
It says, no,
Says I am
you
sharing.
have to share. Did you click on share the screen?
Yeah. Here, I'll stop sharing. I'll try again.
Share your entire screen at the top. You have to pick share your entire screen. And click on the screen that's there.
Because I'm not allowed to share my screen.
You're a co-host. How could that be? meeting host. Why would that be?
And then,
Says, there you go.
there you go.
So if there's any way you could, well, no, we can see that up there.
Better?
Yeah, that's cool. We can see it.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Tonight, my name is Joyce Cannell. I'm from the Community Builders. I'll talk a little bit more about who we are in a moment, but my co-presenter tonight is
Mark Walmsley, Conservation Director at Capital Trust.
And so we're here tonight to present a joint project between the TCB and Kestrel Land Trust through Kestrel Land Trust Growing Green, Easthampton project for a preservation of about 51 acres development and preservation on 51 acres with affordable housing along the frontage at 385 Main Street in Easthampton. And we're here to request CPA. Go ahead.
So as I mentioned, I'm from Kestrel Land Trust. We are a regional land trust that's been serving the Connecticut River Valley since 1970. I won't get too into depth, but we work on a variety of projects from forest conservation to farmland conservation to public access projects. And we've done some really wonderful projects with the city of Easthampton, including Mount Tom North Trailhead Park. So keep reading that.
And TCB, we are a nonprofit affordable housing developer. We're headquartered in Boston. We've been doing this work for over 15 years. We have a regional approach to our work. So I sit in an office in Northampton and I oversee our Western and Central Massachusetts work. We have deep connections to the city of Easthampton through our College Highway property, which abuts the 385 parcel. So it's a 40-acre senior building that we developed in 1990. So really excited about the opportunity to do more work in Easthampton. These are a sampling of some of our local projects that we've completed in the last 5 or so years. So the vision for this project, Kestrel brought this exciting opportunity to us where there is a lovely piece of land that needs to be conserved. However, it had some developable frontage. It is an expensive piece of land that will likely be developed in other ways if this project doesn't move forward. So the thought was, how can we pair our joint vision together for land conservation and dense affordable housing development? And the state of Massachusetts is in a housing crisis, the city of Easthampton especially so, and really needing deeply affordable units at a high volume over the next 10 or so years. So we were thrilled about this opportunity, especially given it neighboring our College Highway property with 40 senior units that are in need of reinvestment after 40 years or 400 years of wear and tear that the housing stock takes. So what we're proposing here tonight for the housing side is approximately 87 new construction, highly energy efficient units. That's a family mix from studios to 3 bedrooms, and also the rehab and preservation of the 40 existing elderly units here. It will be 100% affordable, serving a wide range from those earning no income to about 80% of AMI, which is about the market that we see in Easthampton. We're building to high energy standards, potentially passive house design for the buildings, all electric and solar ready roofs. We're going to have over 40 acres conserved as part of this project. So we'll only be developing along the frontage, and conservation will be used in a myriad of ways. I'll let Mark get into that as we move forward. Well, keep moving through the presentation. Mark's going to talk about how we got to Easthampton today.
Yeah, so I'll take us back to 2021, where we had a very generous anonymous donor approach Kestrel Land Trust with a vision and a large donation of $500,000 to be spent over 5 years to pursue a joint conservation affordable housing project. So how did this come together? This particular donor knew Easthampton well. He was very connected to the city, and I think they knew that land was scarce and there were a lot of competing uses, a lot of equally important competing uses for the remaining undeveloped land in the community. So rather than be seeing that as an insurmountable challenge, I think the donor was really inspired. Could those competing uses not compete? Could they work together on a project? And could they work together, I think, in two interesting ways. Could they work together practically to make a project happen, bringing the resources from the conservation community together with the resources of the affordable housing community? But also, could those two uses, could housing and conservation, the concept be developed together on site to mutually benefit one another? The conservation of the open space land benefiting the people in the affordable housing, and again, the housing bringing a ready supply of people to care about the land right next door. So actually, just go back just 1 second. Oh, sorry, no, it's okay. I just realized just really quickly. One of the things we did with that initial donation was do a feasibility study of the remaining parcels, important parcels in town. And we noticed that a lot of parcels were not only in the housing production plan, but were also in the open space plan. So you have that kind of convergence of interests and values right there. Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. We pretty quickly centered in on 385 Main Street. Conservation groups had seen this property a lot before. It's one of the largest remaining undeveloped properties in the city. It is close to downtown, on Route 10 College Highway. It's a beautiful property. You've probably driven by it, and we can get into some pictures in a second. But really importantly, not only does it have some great farmland up front, it buffers the Manhattan River. You can see it along the back. So again, when most people drive by this property, they see the big, beautiful fields in front. You can see Pomeroy Mountain in the background. If you walk in the middle of the property, you can see Mount Tom behind you. It's really quite striking. What most people don't really understand is the fields are only part of the property. A significant part of the property is forest, both upland forest and then ravines going down to riparian forests along the Manhattan. Here's some views if you can peek into the woods as you drop down to the Manhattan. It's really quite spectacular. So, I mean, the fields are, themselves stand out, but the forest life is pretty wonderful too. This is an area that's already been pinpointed and focused on by conservation groups for its importance, particularly the riparian corridor of the Manhattan. 385 Main abuts two other conservation areas: Pomeroy Meadow Conservation Area, which is owned by Piscataway Conservation Trust, as well as the Whittemore Conservation Area across the river, which is in Southampton. There's also several APRs along the river as well. So it really, truly important water source, water supply source, and habitat corridor. When we delved into this property a little more, kind of the scientific data and mapping supported kind of what we all saw on the ground. The slide on the left shows you the state's biomap layer. You can see most of the property is in biomap. Most of it is critical natural landscape, but there is some biomap core right along the Manhattan. So it has incredibly high habitat values as well as climate resilience values. On the right, you can see farm soils, both prime and statewide important farm soils. It has been hayed for several years now, but they are pretty good quality soils. One of the things we did as part of our feasibility study, particularly on this property, is figure out, well, if we don't buy this and do something innovative with it, what would likely happen? And we tasked our landscape architect to give us something realistic, and possibly even conservative. And they think under the current zoning, even with the wetlands, we had the wetlands delineated, you could put 35 single-family market rate homes blanketing the entire site in a regular subdivision, pushing all the way back into the forest. The homes in back would have a really lovely view of the Manhattan, but you cut down all the forest to look at the Manhattan. We think this is a realistic way this could possibly go if our project does not move forward. So what we came up with a proposal when we looked at the appraisals for the property, what the natural resource values were, what TCB's housing, needs were for housing, and how the parcel can be split up, was basically to, purchase the parcel as one. The landowners want to sell the parcel as one. They don't want to sell part of it and then sell another part of it in the future. They need to sell it all together. But to have TCB and Kestrel split the property upon acquisition. Again, it's actually around 53 acres, we think right now, and around 43 of it would be conserved, mostly in the back, but capturing 3 large fields. And then there would be public access, and a frontage for the conservation land along Route 10. So there would be a public access point with parking for the broader community. The parcel would also serve the new community in the housing development in the years to come. The housing would be along the frontage on around 10 or 11 acres, kind of kept out of the most important land habitat wise, and kept in the best place for access for transportation and other amenities.
That leads us to our current proposal that we have, which shows 3 new construction buildings of 29 units each in that housing parcel that we just discussed around the frontage. So it's about 10-acre parcel that would include all of the housing, all of the parking, roadways, auxiliary maintenance building, and outdoor recreation for the housing contained within that parcel, as well as we're showing a small parking area and access road to access the conservation land. Folks can see my mouse right here, along this existing farm road that exists there today. It's just a little closer in here, showing these 3 buildings that are really set on the site to preserve the view corridor that does exist, that Mark explained, through this building to the 2 views to the east and west.
East and west
East
of the
and
mountains,
west.
yes.
Great, thank you. Also adding some connection to our existing College Highway property, which is down here planned south, as folks can see my mouse right here, where our residents today currently do utilize this open space for wildlife observation, for walking in non-wet conditions. So we are proposing an accessible walking trail that would allow for even ADA and wheelchair accessible use throughout the property, looping to really build that connection between these 2 communities that we're building here.
So no plan to connect the roads, just a walking path between the 2 properties?
Sure. So I can, so we're planning a loop road right now, which comes off of College Highway, again, right here where you see my mouse. It actually does connect to the existing driveway to our College Highway property, which is right here along the border. So
It's paved though, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
And I should also just say one thing, which you mentioned, kind of the farm access road, that's kind of a utility path. I mean, that would probably become more of a multi-use recreational path that would also have this other use for agricultural access. So you could drive a tractor down it, but it would kind of be almost like a promenade park that was into that one.
How many stories high?
33.
3 stories.
Which is right now, actually, the College Highway building is 4 stories, so the whole height attic.
Can we wait on questions until she's done? If it's possible.
Sure.
Great. So I'll move on. These are some initial renderings prepared by our architecture team. This is showing a proposed bus stop that we would like to work together with the city of Easthampton to provide service both for the residents of these buildings and others in this area, as well as potentially adding sidewalks along College Highway in this area. Great. And so going into our ask tonight at the CPA committee, we meet all of the CPA's general criteria between these 2 projects. We serve multiple purposes with both community housing and open space preservation. I won't go through and read all these words for you, but we really feel like the goals of the CPA and the goals of this project are well aligned, as well as the overall goals of the city and administration in Easthampton today. Great. And so we're prepared for a long-term deed restriction to 100% of the units here. TCB is an affordable housing developer, but also owner, and we're mission-driven and committed to maintaining and preserving and reinvesting in our communities, as we are with College Highway with this proposal.
Yeah, we obviously meet a lot of the open space criteria. The land is high ecological value. It will be open for recreational use to the public. It absolutely protects the watershed of the Manhand as well as the aquifer. It absolutely has development pressures, as we saw, and yeah, it would be expanding current conservation area along the river. So I mean, really kind of adding value to what's already been done.
And so just our timeline, I'm sure everyone in this room, this is not news to you, but this work takes a really long time. Kestrel has been working on this for quite some time. We were brought in over a year ago as a potential partner and really excited about a little less than a year ago, we're selected to partner here. We've done quite a bit of outreach. Just recently, we began our public-facing outreach, first with the residents who live in our College Highway communities as the most impacted people by this project, and then with the greater abutters in that community as well. We recently came and sat with a bunch of department heads here at this very table in the city of Easthampton. So we're really wanting to meet with everyone, get everyone's feedback. Even it might, this is a long process to this work, but all this feedback is important. I think one thing that I haven't mentioned, and I don't think we can talk too in depth here, but this will be a 40B process through the city of Easthampton. It's a process TCB is very familiar with. College Highway was a 40B in 1990, so we have already actually submitted our eligibility letter with the state and the Department of Rural Communities, who will be reviewing that application because of the affordable housing the affordable housing aspect of this project. Great, and so here are some of our next steps after this meeting today. The funds we are requesting today are for acquisition dollars. It's an expensive piece of land, and conservation and affordable housing don't come with deep pockets. So we are here seeking funds just to support the acquisition, which we hope to achieve by June of 2024. Great. And just some budget here. So the total expenses is a little under $2.7 million for the work we're doing and the purchase of the land. That will be split between Kestrel and the community builders. At the end, we will each own our own parcels. TCB will develop housing and Kestrel will preserve the land, and we both think we each do those things quite well. So we will do that on our own parcel of this land. But as you can see, our current request of $600,000 here goes into the budget.
Yeah, I can mention, we actually have some interesting flexibility here because of the multiple purposes of this acquisition. This is really an acquisition for open space and housing. So certainly we outside of Easthampton are looking for funding for both. I should mention that either way, we were really happy with the support of the city to get a Massachusetts Conservation Partnership grant from the state, which is absolutely wonderful, which will require us to have a conservation restriction on the conserved portion. Mass Audubon has already committed to holding the conservation restriction on the land, which we were absolutely thrilled with. We intend to approach the city to see if they'd be willing to be a co-holder on the CR as well. I think we'll have some really great possibilities, but that conversation will happen in the future. Yeah, I think that's. I should just mention the timeline for the acquisition then maybe. So Kestrel right now has the purchase and sale agreement, with the landowners. It is assignable in whole or in part. So as Julie mentioned, the intention would be at closing to split the land at closing, with a portion of the land going to Kestrel, a portion of it going to TCP. Right now, we are slated to close before June 30th of next year, so it's a tight time frame. We're going to try and get the 40B through in that time as well. It is a contingency. We need to get all our funding together. It is a tight time frame, but that part of it, as the more funding comes in, the more strings are attached to it. So that conservation partnership grant, that also requires us to close by the end of the state fiscal year, June 30th, and have a conservation restriction in place. So again, as I mentioned earlier, everything kind of has to hang together here. We can't really split it up in terms of, just conserving it or just doing housing. The two really have to come together in order to conserve the land and to purchase it.
Well, I like it. Anything else? Is that it? You're all done?
Well, we're here. We'll answer as many questions.
I have a couple just to start with. The 87 affordable are in the new housing.
Yeah.
You have 40 units of elderly housing, is that 55 and over?
55 and over or disabled.
And that's in the existing College Highway apartments?
That's right.
Would they be affordable?
Those are 100% affordable today.
They already are. Okay. Jeff, help me out. Remind me about 40B projects. Doesn't that make the permitting, et cetera, planning board action a little smoother for this project? No? Don't. I asked him. What does 40B do?
Well, I would answer yes. I think the intent is it's streamlined. The city has a time constraint to render a decision, and they can propose a project that is to whatever degree it could be out of compliance with the zoning ordinance. And so there are some gains and efficiencies that they would have via 40B, and the discussion that we have had so far is that the friendly 40B comes in part by having the support of the mayor's office, the mayor in particular, the chief executive officer signs on to say that this project meets goals of the city of Easthampton and that, you know, we are supportive of it, subject to it going through a public process to look at the particulars. So we've been talking about the 40B for a little bit. We've been sort of prepping the ZBA members about the 40B process. And I think once the application comes in, we will seek some technical support that gets offered when a project comes forward. So we see it as, you know, a good option in this case. And, you know, the process is streamlined. It doesn't mean that the public input is streamlined, but the process is intended to be quicker.
Okay. Questions from membership?
That lien was originally $4 million. How did you get it so low?
That's actually
It's $5 million,
and
Where was it, 5 million?
It was 8 million before
It was
that.
8 million.
Yeah. So one of the tricks was, although the asking price was that high, the owners did not want to get, you know, deeper into the due diligence on the property, particularly delineating the wetlands until someone put money on the table.
Okay.
So the fact that we had this anonymous grant said, you know, look, we think the asking price is high, but we're going to get it under contract and we're going to figure out what it's actually worth.
Okay.
So it allowed us that time to do the wetlands delineation, to come up with partners and figure out. And honestly, you know, we think the combination of conservation dollars and affordable housing dollars, I think is probably the best offer that you get. We think it's very competitive.
It's been on
We
the
can
market
best-
for a while.
Not we can best other folks, but
Yeah.
if it went back onto the market at 2.5,
Somebody
Yeah.
snapped it up.
I
Yeah,
think it would sell.
definitely.
I think it would sell.
Other members?
So this money, you need this money by June of 2024.
So, yeah, we have to close before the end of the
About
month.
600K.
Well, that leads me to ask, what if you only got 500? Would that be really bad?
It's an excellent question. You know, I think probably the best way to describe that, you know, the project would wobble a bit. We're still looking at around $1 million worth of financing for the project. I have a good line on $500,000, which I'm going to be presenting for the Norcross Wildlife Foundation on Monday for 2 years of no interest loan for $500,000. So we have to come up with $500,000 to borrow from somewhere. We have some good sources, but you know, we need to do that work. So if we add another 100,000 on, you know, we just have to, it would kind of send us a little sideways and would have to see if we could recover.
I'm not suggesting that that's what I would propose. I'm
Yeah, but
just
I'm just
asking
saying-
what happens.
You know, it adds a big question mark. It just raises the bar for us to find it somewhere else.
Okay.
There are restrictions in place for what affordable housing, what the state will fund for us to purchase on a per unit or parcel like this. And so the price that we have in our budget for this is at about the max of what we would be able to get funded for purchasing on a per unit for this parcel. So it really restricts. It would restrict flexibility and you know, the project moving forward on the affordable housing side greatly.
Okay. Scott,
The Pascomic land that is west of it.
Yeah.
So the Pascomic land is what actually abuts the river, is that right? Or,
Yes, the Scomic land actually abuts
and
them.
there are existing trails?
There are, they enter from the north, and we have been in conversation with them about what the ultimate kind of trail network would
That was
look
my,
like.
yeah, that was kind of my next
It's
question.
a little easier to figure out the trails around the housing, and that's certainly fun, and yeah, because they can be multi-use. There will be at least, I imagine, one more loop trail kind of around one of the fields. But we're looking into the forest, trying to figure out what's the most sensitive areas where you wouldn't want to route trails.
Yeah.
But there is some excitement about linking, you know, access.
So there has been discussions about making a
Oh.
larger network within those.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that I'm really happy with this is not only do we have Mass Audubon on board, but we've had a letter of support from Pascomic as well. So we are
Great.
certainly lining up. It's pretty amazing. You know, we're proposing a development on a really prime parcel, and we have conservation groups backing it. And Kestrel is actually giving money to TCB to help them with the purchase, which was a huge hump for us to get over our board for a land trust to be supporting a development. But we see the value in both practically and just, these are two public goods. So it makes sense to work together.
Thank you.
and this project is ready to go. I mean, in the sense that June is when you're gonna close, to me, that means it's ready to go. We're not talking about something that's years down the road in the sense of starting out. You've already been working on it for 2 years.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, the land acquisition would happen pretty quickly. The land with some minor improvements for public access would happen pretty quickly. The housing would happen, all what Julie talked about, that would happen down the road. But the land would be secured and it would be secured for those purposes. So it would be set.
Yeah, so this kind of work takes time. It's about an 8-year arch.
8 years.
Yes, we've started almost 2 years ago now.
So 6 more years until we see houses.
Maybe not, you might have something a little sooner than that, but it is gonna be 2 phases. The first phase we envision is going to be one of these new buildings constructed and the rehab of the existing buildings. We also are hopeful to partner with the city of Easthampton on an infrastructure project, which might include the build out of the roadways, that bus stop that we talked about, connections to the bike path across the way, and improvements along those streets. So it's not going to be 8 years with nothing happening. It'll be a very active project, but it's long-term work.
Given that the public's already expressed a great deal of favoritism to this project when it was discussing another project that they weren't in favor of, I feel like you won't have a public negativity toward it at all. So
but we do have to work with, with the neighbors, which we started. Yes, I mean, there's a project to grow up, but we need to make sure that, it fits into the neighborhood. We're listening to their voices for how they want to use the land.
And it's a change of use of the land. It is the frontage. We are so excited that we're going to be really able to preserve much of the open space that is here today, as well as the wooded area. But it's a change. And so we do this work a lot. We're going to communities and we want to just make sure that we work together as collaboratively with the direct abutters and neighbors who are going to be experiencing that. And that's why we went to first our residents as the closest abutters who really their view of the field is going to change more than anyone's. And then we went to the surrounding neighbors second.
Good. And I could say so far that the neighbors have seemed to have liked the phased nature of it, the fact that it wasn't going to be office months. And I think they also realize the idea that change is going to happen to this land one way or the other. So this is an opportunity to support.
I like what you're doing versus a huge development.
Yes. I think most people do. So.
I'm curious about the size of the building. One building. Is it this size? Size of this building?
Yeah, how many square feet is it?
The square footage, that's interesting.
But yeah, I can get back to you on that. I don't want to spend time looking for
It's probably a architecture in flux though, right?
Right now. So they're not fully, we are very high level renderings right now. So our intent behind the design is really like pulling from some of the agricultural history.
That's one building or two?
That's actually 3.
One's hidden behind it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they are all similar. They're slightly, angled differently on the site for different, we're using really natural materials on the siding. Building up, obviously there's no trees there, it's an open field today. So doing landscape, natural plantings. The buildings actually sit much lower than the road. So they're not going to feel like huge buildings. They're going to be kind of blending in there. So they're, a really typical size style building, but we think that they're actually quite lovely this way.
Excellent.
And we've been taking a lot of thought of where the kind of, when I say open space, like the more public open space for the community is going to be, the more developed, the playgrounds, kind of the multi-use kind of field areas, and how that's going to be nestled into the land. What are the views going to be? How it's going to unfold around them? What are the nodes for the trails going to be? So yeah, that's been a really fun.
We put a lot of thought into where does the public and private line stop and cross and how they interact together. At TCV, we just finished off, 2 decades worth of development up at the old state hospital in Northampton, where we have a similar thing. We have affordable housing next to very, very high-end homes with this kind of open space in between them, sometimes right next door. So we're really excited about this opportunity, and this is just such a lovely site to be in this on.
One more question. I'm sorry. It's the affordable housing is going to be 80% of the AMI. That's what you said?
It will be up to that. So it'll be a range of units. We'll have those from those who make no income, make extremely low income, through 50 and 60% of AMI, and some at 80, which is about the market that we see the market renter in Easthampton.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
And
Jeff. Oh, sorry. Let me just. Who was that?
just quick, and so you're anticipating this is gonna be a 2-phase project?
Yes.
Okay, Joe.
So hopefully this is we talk about this being a friendly 40B. Does 40B take away the planning board's complete control over design, or is it still?
It's under the CPA. It's not under the planning board. It's the zoning board.
Oh, but does it take away there? their role in design or making sure everyone is agreement this area?
It's the ZBA, as Jeff said, I don't think it takes it all away, but if, you know, if there's not a lot of wiggle room, like the ZBA doesn't have a lot of authority to say it's too big or I don't like the color, like it's kind of going to be close to what is proposed. I think that's the really nice part about what's going on is the proposal is well crafted coming in.
Right.
So the need to have like big battles about what the size, what it looks like, seem minimized right off the bat. But you know, for all intents and purposes, you know, this could be significantly different. And I think this could be 5 stories or 6 stories. And that's when I think that it would be a lot more challenging. 3 stories seems to be sort of the trend, like in most settings in Easthampton, like 3 stories is kind of pretty tall. I think there are some exceptions. I think we'll talk about an exception coming up on the next project that fits the character. But in terms of like a field and putting a 3-story building, and that's what's allowed under the zoning, 3-story buildings. In this case, not to get in the weeds of the zoning stuff, but you know, 18 units is sort of the maximum number of units in a single building. So that's one of the variations that this project needs to accomplish kind of that density and consolidation into this part of the site. So I think that's one of the things that the ZBA will look at is what the zoning normally requires and what's the variation from that. And so I would say at least it's not a lot of height.
I'll say, yeah, we've been working for a long time. We tried many iterations of this, mix of 1 and 2 stories, 2 and 3 stories, and a 3-story, given the site and the respect we want to give to wetland buffers, allows us to have the most density, which we need for affordable housing units in Easthampton, and disturbing the site the least. So preserving the most amount of open space. On the 3-story building, which we feel, given the sloping of the site and the 4-story building that's right next door to it, and the industrial buildings across the way, really does, you know, fit well into the character there.
Did I see Jess? Did you ever hear?
I have a couple of questions. Most of them have been answered, but I heard in the beginning of your presentation talking about the soils and you have prime ag soils there. So I'm just wondering if you've gotten your NEPA clearance or if you've seen if it's hit any of the thresholds on prime soil and if you've gotten some blessings from the NEPA.
Yeah, so we're beginning that process now.
Okay. And then public access to the open space. So I presume since there's a CR, it doesn't all have to be open to the public. Like you said, there are certain areas of that are going to be kind of offset because of the natural resource value and the habitat value. So if somebody was coming to the site, say they wanted to go walk their dog, where would they park? How would they access the open space and how would that work?
Excellent. I can walk you through that. Right now, we plan to have a parking area right where that cursor is, right off Route 10. So that would be for the public coming in from outside. That would also provide farm vehicle access to the back. You would go down that promenade. And I don't know, I have this vision in my mind of that farm road as a place where kids in this community are going to go to learn how to ride a bike. It's going to be a long, straight kind of packed gravel. I mean, this is just going to be perfect for that. We put in an alley of trees there. We don't know whether it's going to be an alley. There's some design work there. So that will lead you. There'll be like a nice park area around near the parking lot, a note to gather with some benches, and then just a long promenade to the back. And then there will be a trail node towards the back, intersecting probably with the open space and playground for the community, the new neighborhood, as we call it, to a trail network around. I should mention a few other things. Again, we want to be careful. We're excited about certain things as ideas, but we don't want to promise them yet because they're in the future and they're concepts. There are good farm soils in here. There's some really good opportunities for community gardens or even a community farm. At the very least, we want to keep the current open areas mowed and hayed, and there's a couple opportunities. There's someone haying it now, but you know, we can partner with other farmers. But there is a possibility for some, you know, community gardens, again, community farm to serve both this new neighborhood as well as outside neighbors. So there could be a small farm stand up front. You know, people could be coming and parking and going to their plots as well. People coming from the new apartments.
So open to the public, not for the residents.
It could be both. It could absolutely both. So, but those are the kind of arrangements, you know, between organizations and programming at the site.
Well, you'll figure that out before you get to the ZBA.
But they're possible. Well, but one of the things, you know, is for the conservation restriction to make sure we allow access.
Sure.
Yeah, which we will.
Okay. And then my last question had to do with this you're requesting for acquisition money. So is your intent to come back and ask for construction money later on? Okay, that wasn't clear in the proposal, so I just want the committee to
But
be
that
aware of that,
intent,
that's.
that later on is another fiscal year.
Because this is probably the most CPA amount that has been requested from any affordable housing project to date. So I just want the committee to be aware that, you know, $600,000 is just for acquisition. That's not to cover any construction costs coming down the pipe.
The state of Massachusetts requires a match from municipality for every phase of the work. So the two separate phases that will be constructing the contract, we will review a match with Easthampton. We're working together with Jeff and the mayor about how that ask comes in. CPA has come up as a viable option for that, but it's an open dialogue. It doesn't have to be $600,000 every time. So
The construction pricing is cuckoo bananas. I mean,
true.
that's
Yeah,
the fact of the matter
it could be
is
double
that
that.
we're talking at $600 a square foot for construction costs now, so.
Yeah.
Do you know what the timeline is for this other ask potentially?
Sure. So we're hoping, and I can switch to our timeline here. So we will be submitting for competitive financing for the construction of the two phases. We expect the first could be submitted in 2025, and that's about February of 2025. So we would be coming back maybe a year from now with a proposal for that ask. So the funds wouldn't need to be committed to that project until that financial closing happened, which would be likely over a year from that.
Are you submitting a one-stop for both phases, or are you gonna do two?
We will submit, it will be two different one-stops, but they will not be submitted at the same time.
Right, okay.
Scott.
For public that are arriving by bicycle, I know this might seem granular, but is there a plan to have a bike rack in that parking lot?
We have bike rooms in every building, and then we also have outdoor bike. Oh, sorry for your.
That's okay.
That's actually, that might have been my next question, so I really appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We have a pretty good budget line item for infrastructure in there, for park infrastructure. And one of the things that is really exciting, I know it's, again, big concept, the opportunity to connect that to the bike path across the way. Jeff can talk about how that connection might go, not practically, but just, geographically. But that this area could link up to the bike path, link up to the schools. I mean, it's pretty amazing if it could make work.
Okay,
Is it Wamilco Way? Is it?
That's the road, yeah.
It's the road across the way.
Oh, yeah.
Like that. Yeah.
Right.
we have two other projects to talk about tonight, so I'd like to conclude unless somebody has an urgent question. Jeff, you go ahead because you had your hand up.
Thanks. I just wanted to say something in support of this project. I am personally excited that they made it here to see you guys. It seemed like it wasn't always a guarantee. It's really been in the works for quite a long time. This and the next project that you're going to hear tonight, I would say are part of the reason why you have, and you already did set aside a significant amount of money, because the hope was that these projects would come forward and make it to you. So the set aside that is already in place was sort of crafted and hopeful that these projects would be accessing those funds. There is going to need to be a sort of a continuous sort of look at this type of project for the next couple of years to support the future phases of both projects and other projects. So, it is going to be probably a separate discussion for the committee at a future date to start to think about a schedule or doing some forecasting out and come up with some strategies to build up pots of money available for projects coming forward in the next few years. I think just two more points, but what you hear, and it's the skill of someone who does it really well. It makes it look pretty easy. Like the idea of this project, the two entities made it look really, makes it sound pretty easy, but I think it's really unique to be approaching the project in this way, and it's difficult. And so, I think as we as a community hear about other projects, or if we need to be careful not to compare things that are apples to things that are oranges. So it's not the straight comparison that you might think. It required, what I've understood from just being part of some of the discussions, is a willing landowner. So the willing landowner to allow the additional time to gather the funds and come up with these agreements and formulate a strategy comes at a cost, but it's also, you know, super important without a willing landowner to give that additional time. Like these projects, the partnerships don't just form overnight. So the CPA dollars are just going to be critical moving forward over the next couple of years to support affordable housing. And I think the mayor has done a great job kind of previewing that this stuff is coming. And I think the CPA is going to be really important to support these projects. And yeah, so I had a note about the additional requests. I just think it will be something that will be discussed on the next project too. So just be thinking about how CPA will need to be hopefully coming to the table over the next few years for all these projects. So I think that was what I want to say.
I think we have looked at quarterly, I think it's a good idea, quarterly appropriations instead of every other month or something, in order to plan out. Mayor.
I just want to speak to the strength of this proposal, jumping on what Jeff said. This is what we've been prepping for 6 years. And from my point of view, when thinking about housing and timing, in my head, it's this project, it's Ferry Street, and it's the schools. And getting that growth set up and then going very hard at a project, I think I can say is close to everyone's heart. If they know housing dollars is the old Logic House, and getting that done and the budgeting. So when I'm looking at my time and what money I'm going after and whatnot, it's all housing, and it's those projects, which I know there's other pieces of public process, but that's what I'm, for me, that I don't want to say completes housing, but that's where we need to be. And in fact, the uniqueness of this particular proposal, and as everyone knows, I like to share the penny of how it comes together with conservation and low carbon impact. It's like, it's a check the box for our climate action plan. It's a check the box for the state and talking already to folks in housing about some money that will come up specifically for that kind of project. I see it as something that does. It's an apple. And then, maybe it's a gray burn and the next project is a Honeycrisp. And there are different pots of money to go after. And I know, I hear Jess very well. It's a lot of money. I was taken aback at the front, and then really we walked the land and kind of went over numbers, saw what other people were building where. So I just, this is an amazing project. We're going to talk about another one, and for me the grand slam is then it's we continue to work on the town lodging. Get that done.
Could you stop sharing?
Sure.
I actually have a procedural question. 359 Main Street abuts 385, I believe, the land abuts. And I live at 359. It's the condo complex. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Do you know what land abuts 380?
Oh, you mean to the north?
To the north,
Yes, yes. Okay, I know the complex, yeah.
right? Okay, so that's the Hamptons complex. I live there. Do I have to recuse myself?
I don't think so, Jeff. He's in a butters who are on the committee.
You don't stand to make a financial,
Okay, I'm just,
but you can
I love the project for
I would put it on the record. If I
Well,
was-
Put it on the record and.
Yeah, right.
If I may, there's a disclosure form that's how you put it on the record. There's a disclosure form.
Okay.
And typically, we've encountered this before, filing of the disclosure form is what dispels the appearance even of a conversation.
Okay.
The mayor's gonna add to that.
Okay.
I would say that you should recuse yourself. We've had these situations before. I've had to recuse myself for being in a butter of the East. Yeah, I think that's.
I'm going to recuse myself.
I mean, you could call ethics, but I think it's very precarious, not to recuse. Going on the record saying that, and given the different pots of money that this project might involve,
Okay.
like CPA might not be a big deal, but something else.
Yeah.
And you would be already through the project.
I just want to say I love the project and I would have voted for it.
Just get that, yeah.
It's being recorded, that's okay.
But I'm recusing myself.
But when you recuse yourself, that doesn't mean you can't ask questions and be forward with thoughts.
Okay.
You just can't vote on it.
And I'm not gonna vote on it. Okay.
So we're done with,
Jeff,
yes?
I'm sorry, he can't do that.
No?
You
Why?
can't wait because he's got a conflict. And so Ken is going to speak to what he thinks, or he could sway, the rest of the board, and he'll have a private entrance to this land from his condo. Or
Okay.
whatnot.
I just didn't feel,
All right, well,
Meeting the witness, meeting the witness.
this guy watches Suits.
I will,
I talk to ethics a lot.
All right, fine. I don't
Okay.
feel he has to recuse, but I think you've got more information than I do. But okay. I love your judgment there, Ken.
Okay,
So
thank you.
we have another project which you don't have to recuse.
oh, good.
I hope not. Anything, so here's the time. December meeting, the 13th. We will discuss this project and probably vote on it. It'll be sent to the new city council for the first meeting or the second meeting in January. Then the finance committee discusses it, and then the council will, public hearing and everything. The one thing I want to say is to echo what Jeff said. This is well crafted. And I think that speaks volumes to people who have to make a judgment on it. So thank you. Next. You guys have a way to present, or do you want me to just do it?
No, you can do it.
I have the stuff on my drive. This is which one is this?
I'm Richard Kingston with Home City Development. This is Peter Serafino, and we're here requesting your support and funding for we think a really innovative project in Easthampton that is super important for Easthampton as well as Western Massachusetts for 96 affordable.
Give me a
units.
second so that I can share documents.
I can do it all over again.
No, you don't have to. I just want to be able to put on the screen your application.
While you're doing that though, kudos to them. That's a cool project. That is, I've been doing this for a long time, and somebody to bring back like protecting the environment as well as building affordable housing. It's awesome. So, yeah, I don't see that very often.
Okay, so
Thanks for your comments, Jeff, too.
Ferry Street affordable housing. Go for it.
So here you want to run us through
Yeah,
that?
sure. So we're here to request $500,000 for the development of 96 rental apartments at 11-15 Ferry Street. Home City Development has reached an agreement with the property owner whereby we're going to long-term lease that land. And we propose to put up a 5-story building with 96 apartments. 91 of those will be affordable, and there'll be 5 that'll be rented at market rate. It's going to be a steel pedestal because the grade is below street level at that location. If you're familiar with the site. So there'll be a steel pedestal on top of which will be 5 stories of wood frame construction. It'll be a mix of studio, 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. And it will also be all electric, it'll have rooftop solar, electric vehicle charging stations. The goal is to have it meet Energy Star energy efficiency standards, so it'll be a highly energy efficient building. There'll be obviously elevators, community room, meeting space within the building. And it's also a very complicated financing structure in that it'll entail both 4% and 9% low-income housing tax credit. So that sort of raises the degree of difficulty for us as developer. And you can see some images of proposed elevations of the property. Home City Development is a 50-plus-year-old not-for-profit affordable housing developer based in Springfield. We own 462 rental apartments in 8 properties. Most of them are in Springfield. 1 is in Northampton, and we just recently started construction on 34 new apartments in 2 buildings in the town of Pelham. And interestingly enough, our adjoining property owner is Kestrel Land Trust. And I was out there today with the folks from Kestrel. We're actually donating 8 acres of land adjacent to our site to Kestrel that they'll hold in conservation. So, and that property that we're building there is also We're gonna be built to passive house standards. So that's the trend. That's where all this is going, and not just in the affordable housing realm, I think in any type of housing. Free of fossil fuels with reliance on solar and other green energy. In the case of our property, we're proposing that, I think 27, we've modified it a little bit since I think we initially submitted to you. We're looking at now 27 total apartments would be for extremely low income households. Those are folks earning up to 30% of area median income. And then we'll have 64 of them will be for folks up to 60% of area median income. And then 5 apartments rented at market rates. What's key here too is our timing. I mean, our site is fully permitted. We've submitted our initial one-stop application to what used to be called Department of Housing and Community Development. Now it's the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. We submitted that yesterday. If everything goes, if we're awarded in the current funding cycle, then that would get us to start construction in 2025 and complete in 2026. So what we're requesting is $100,000 for pre-development expenses that we would need in 2024, and then the balance to be the balance of the installment, the $400,000 when we complete construction, when we have a certificate of occupancy, and at the time that folks are moving in. And again, that 2026 completion date is our optimistic time frame, assuming we are funded on our initial submission to the state. Usually doesn't work out that way, but we're very hopeful that will happen. Like I say, we have the advantage in that our site is fully permitted, it's zoned. We don't have to go through 40B or any other special permit process. That's all been taken care of. Once we put the financing together, we're ready to begin construction. If there's anything else you want to add?
I think a couple additional notes is that this is part of a longer term development with one industrial lofts. So this is the affordable component that I and Mike and one industrial lofts have been talking about for a long time. We have met with Mike several times, and again, the goal is that Home City Development and the new entity will be the owner of this for long term. So we're looking at a long-term deed restricted property that's going to protect affordable housing in Easthampton and Western Mass for, as many years as we can imagine it.
Is this the building that's currently gutted next to?
No, that's building 7 on the other side of the canal. This is the on the east side of the canal. And I would like to say,
see my cursor, what's this building?
That's building 7 on the western side of the canal.
And the canal's right here.
Yep.
So this is a whole new building, or
this is a there's a building there currently that's being demoed. That's in process of looking for some brownfield money to demo now. And then once that building is demoed, we'll have a new building on site.
So you're asking, just to go through this, 100,000 in 2024.
Correct.
And that's going to be used for demolition right now, or for
Pre-development.
pre-development?
Yeah, pre-development.
Okay.
So that's like design, architecture.
Right. And in your opinion, the affordable housing component is fairly guaranteed in this project, or do you feel like you have some possibilities that it won't happen? I just have to have be the devil's advocate here, in a sense that we want to make sure that if we're putting this money out there, it's going to be for affordable housing in the end.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't. I mean, we are an affordable housing developer, and we are presenting 91 affordable units for funding. If it doesn't get funded, we don't have a development. And I mean, that's the way we look at it.
They're also asking for 400K at certificate of occupancy, which means that those apartments would be absolutely guaranteed affordable.
Correct.
And Jeff and I were talking about this. We can set up like we did for Old Town Hall, a retained city match account, and every year put some money in, so that 400,000 doesn't hit hard whenever that comes through. In other words, it's in every year in our budget, we put some money into that account. It's retained city match for the Ferry Street project.
So it's only 2 years. So you're asking to move 200K.
I won't be here, but I'm just suggesting that that's a way to do
what
it.
you're proposing is that it would
That way you put funds aside, so it's not a 400,000 hit at the end.
Similar to what we do for Old Town Hall.
The motion from the committee could be 100,000 now, 200,000 in FY 25 and 200,000 in FY 26. All, and then it's me.
Well, it'd have to go someplace other than to them because they're
No,
not
I
getting
wouldn't-
the 400,000
we
until.
can put that in the grant agreement.
Yeah, okay.
There's lots of ways to do it.
Okay, so 100,000 now, okay.
400,000 at CO. And again, this is a $47 million project. So this is a big project. It sends a great message to the state that we have CPA and city investment into this community. And it's important to us because, these projects have large gaps. And large gaps have to come from somewhere. And, we are a fairly small nonprofit. So, we can't fund a lot of this on our own. So we end up going for pre-development loans at, market rate interest rates that are expensive. So any support that we can get is going to make for a better project and be really impactful.
So if I understand it, I think we have to vote on a $500,000 commitment so that you can say to the state, they've committed 500,000. And in the grant agreement, 100,000 this year, 200,000, set aside every year until we get to the 500,000. Am I correct? And I'm assuming members that we're going to have to do that because they want to use the fact, we've done this for other projects, like for the park grants and things.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
The grant agreement can be written so that it talks about the whole 500,000, but also talks about the phasing of that money.
Well, that's what we're talking
in our
about.
Pelham project as well.
Okay.
Phased it that way.
And that way your state applications and everything can show $500,000 commitment from the CPA.
And then I don't know if the city of Easthampton is already a member of the state's mass docs process, but, so you are. So then you'll get the deed restriction. When we close on the property, the city is part of the entire closing process and has named in the deed restriction. So that works.
I'm curious, Jeff or Jeff,
They're saying.
when affordable housing is deed restricted, is it rent controlled or does it go up based on the affordable income levels, et cetera?
I'm actually gonna let Peter, the finance wizard, explain what it is. But it is based on, it's based on HUD income levels. They give you very specific rents that you're allowed to charge. If you have a voucher, you can charge a different amount because you have a voucher amount. So
It's definitely going down a rabbit
In
hole.
other words, it's not
It's-
easy.
It's not rent control as we know.
Right.
It is based on FMRs and tax credit limits and,
You might want to explain that.
fair market rents. So,
Right, I
taking
knew that.
average fair market.
I actually knew that meant.
Yeah.
And there's
Just like it's a good teacher.
It's an affordable housing restriction that lays out all of it, and it talks about, that certain number of units are restricted to 30% of area median income, whatever that might be in the future. And the other units are restricted at 60% of area median income, whatever that may be in the future. So, but it's difficult, we do try to get rent increases as, costs increase over time, but, those deed restrictions in terms of the level of affordability that we have to hit. And then, there is compliance that we have to, at least for the first, throughout the time of the deed restriction, we, have to.
Is the deed restriction time set or is it infinity?
It's longer than we're all going to be.
Yeah, so what the
Okay.
application that we'll submit to the state will look for a 45-year restriction.
Okay.
And we see the restrictions go from 45 years to 199 years on some of these projects. Just a couple other notes, there's 5 accessible units. There are some units that have preferences for veterans. So it is a, deeply layered community and here to support as many folks that are vulnerable in our population as we can.
That's fantastic. Okay, I assume the committee has looked at all this, it's in the packet. I think it's a very worthwhile project, just to make a comment on it, and I think the $100,000 makes it affordable for 2024 funds. We have 800 and some thousand in the affordable housing account. So we can do both of these projects without being bankrupt. Jeff.
Is it okay?
Yeah, I said Jeff.
And I heard when you remember talking, sorry. I also wanted to just, say on behalf of this project, it's a great project and like from a planning perspective, Highly recommend the CPA consider this. A couple finer notes, the presenters can, should not underplay the fact that the project has planning board approval. So in the past year, the permit was amended to increase the number of units allowed in the overall property. And it's sort of totally different than the project that you heard about. This is actually an example of infill development, compact development, high density development close to, bus routes, bike trail, public access to amenities. I mean, this is a really good example of a dense project close to goods and services. The ZBA granted a variance to allow it to go taller than the zoning allows, and that's been granted, and the appeal period's done, and the Conservation Commission has fully approved sort of the entire project, but then the amendments to change this building format. So this is, for all intents and purposes, this is like one of our first projects out of the gate. This is our most permitted, ready project. And I think I really credit the applicant team to get into this first round of applications for the tax credits. It's essentially shovel ready. Couple other things I wanted to say was that this project's actually been in the works longer than the other one. And since 2018, the owner of the property has been trying really diligently to figure out an affordable housing project. And I think the owner is often very shy about that fact, but I think this is finally the fruits of that effort paying off. I know that there have been public comments about the project and, that it's too bad it didn't have any affordable housing, but all the while, this was trying to
You're talking about the other ferries.
All of it, yeah, because it kind of
it's
all one
Mr.
project.
Mishan, right? We're talking, he's the owner.
So part of this project will incorporate a bike path connection. So it's always part of the vision for this side of the canal project.
Mm-hmm.
And something that didn't come up with the last project discussion is that the CPA money is not really going to be the only money going into these projects. So the mayor and I and others, Greg, none of them in the DPW, are talking a lot about ways that we're going to look at these projects and really focus on infrastructure grants to support them. So there is another sort of grant structure taking shape called Housing Works. So it's similar to Mass Works, which we're pretty familiar with, but it's for supporting affordable housing projects.
Are you talking about the Main Street project too? For
Yes.
infrastructure help? Well, that's good to know.
Yep. So in this case, what we're looking at conceptually is the retaining wall on Ferry Street is a significant problem with the intersection of Parsons and Ferry. So we have an opportunity to look at that wall and move that wall and incorporate pedestrian access to the new bike path connection across the way. And then support some of the infrastructure that this project needs on site. So utilities, the bike path connection. So the mayor and I, in particular, are really working really hard to have the projects become successful and then match the grants to them. And so the Main Street one, we'd be looking maybe next year or at the right time, maybe it's next year or the year after, for infrastructure grants to support that project, including crossing Route 10, building a sidewalk, and getting people over to the bike path. So conceptually, these projects are super important because it'll allow us to go for the infrastructure grants alongside of them. The last thing is just having spoken to Home City, they're optimistic that they could get the funding in the first round, and that sets up the schedule of the next 2 years. I think Jeff was saying 200,000. If unfortunately they were not successful, there would be a little bit more leeway in that timeline to go into 2027. And I think something that the CPA is going to probably grapple with is sort of a sliding schedule to be sort of putting the CPA's best effort forward to kind of find the project that needs the money first, and then build up the money for the project that needs it kind of second, and just be sort of thinking about that, because I think the developers are going to need to be looking to you guys to have the flexibility, and the timelines are going to be super important. So yeah, with that, I'll stop. But
yeah, we would ask that the end timeline is based on the funding opportunity, right? So
That's happened with other applicants. You just come back to us and say, we've had a problem, we need 2 more years or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's just an internal vote. It doesn't really have to go to the council or anything. We can just.
And thank you, Jeff. I mean, I think the one thing from our vantage point is that, this is a building that we're going to be really proud of. And, not only is it, we're looking at high energy efficiency and with fossil fuels, we want it to be healthy, sustainable, and great. We want it to be a community that, we look at building communities that, market rate folks want to live in. But our mission is to build housing for folks that have been marginalized and overlooked in our communities. And, but we want it to be aesthetically pleasing, healthy, and sustainable. So, when we walk away from this, that's the legacy that Peter and I, want to create.
Did you want to say something there?
Again, I mean, Ferry Street, I feel like it's like homecoming. It's the first big project that I took under and figured out when I became mayor. We have a private developer who is persnickety, but only wants quality. And my heart broke a little bit on the Mass Works application when we said we'd get some affordable housing, workforce housing, and we had to back away from that. I would be the first one to admit I wasn't going to fight that because we need to do something there. And this particular project, and what we're talking about as far as AMI and people who live there exceeds my wildest dreams, and honestly exceeds the original plans back in 2018. The other is the connections. It's, bear with me, but it started, I don't know how many years ago, with community block development grants and going after infrastructure around Admiral Street and then New City, and then coming down to Emerald Place. This particular project fits very nicely like Legos with that. And New City is one of our target neighborhoods, lowest income. Then you have the Lego of this project. You have Ferry Street, 3, 5, 7 is slowly being worked on. But then you go right into the Mill District that we got the one stop for, that's going to open the back of the mills in a little more safe way. And that then pairs with across the street with the Pleasant Green neighborhood that we've started to do a very detailed community engagement, but also a financial equity study where we say we want certain things like affordable housing, deeply affordable housing, and we're putting the money towards it. And unfortunately, for the last 4 years, we haven't. I mean, own that or whatnot. You can talk and talk and talk, but I'm redoing the capital plan to put the housing forward. So you now have, hopefully it's enough hedge in Pleasant Green neighborhood that it doesn't become gentrified, but it's really a set of Legos that patch in with everything we've tried to do. Jeff and Jody and I, every major housing project we have going, we very purposely have figured out the infrastructure money that we want for it. I'm hoping in the next, God bless Congress doing their job once, we'll have an announcement on Route 10 that's infrastructure related. And that's what we targeted there and the others. But for this, this combines the municipal vulnerability money that we've gotten, that we have now, traffic. It opens one of our poorest neglected neighborhoods to all the best things in the Mill District and connects them to, and not isolates and connects them to more great housing, as well as then goes to Pleasant Green, which is a personal concern of mine that we're going to lose that as gentrification, but also with the girls and really have a great teaming, neighborhood. I would also, the first 100,000 in this year, is really important. I mean, they're not asking for money that's not important, but is really important from my perspective because I'm fighting hard alongside them to get into the first round of low income tax credits. Jess will tell you just how amazingly difficult that is. It just doesn't happen. But to show the money, the investment now is permanent. I just want to have the strongest. These guys are ready to go. Let's get it started. And And it also takes pressure off of money we need, the beginning money we need for the town lodge and for the schools, for Route 10 or whatever happens there. So the timeline, the 100,000, I think it well expressed why it was important. But it's, I'm in my head doing the dates of when there'll be a vote on this and how fast can we get that news to Secretary of Justice.
Well, I was gonna ask, what is that timeline? Do you have to get to the low income tax credits, et cetera? Because this won't get to the city, this won't get approval at the council. If I was there, it would get faster approval, but January, maybe. First meeting in February, council approves the 100,000. I mean, how does that work for you?
Yeah, so we expect that we will be invited to submit a full one-stop application. I think that's February 15th, mid-February. So to have letters of support to go with that application.
Well, you could get letters of commitment from the CPA.
Then,
I can't guarantee council approval, but I can't imagine it wouldn't.
If they had council minutes that showed the vote of the approval, that would be.
Well, you mean our minutes? The city council approved the 100,000. They'll only approve the 100,000. They won't approve the rest. That comes as it comes, 200,000. Okay.
We have the CPA approval. We have the CPA approval by the time we put in our application.
Well, this vote should happen in December unless the membership wants to hold it off. I'd like to see the vote in December. So please come back on the 13th for further discussion. And the idea of these presentations is for the members to look at it all and maybe they'll have more questions. Okay.
I just want to point out that their request of the total 500,000 is 1% of the total development cost of that project.
When it's $47 million.
Correct, but in comparison to the previous, which is 22% of the acquisition cost. So
that's a little bit apples and oranges.
A little bit, but it's still, but they're gonna come back and, but Community Build has already said they're gonna come back and ask for more for construction.
Right.
So, they'll probably have a $47 million budget as well. We're just beginning. So I just want to point that this is a very small amount of money in comparison to what they're accomplishing.
No doubt. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Mayor.
I just want, just to understand the process, and I completely agree with you can't ignore the balance. Yeah, it's apples and oranges, but it's a huge investment on the other one, and it's just the beginning. So the letter, like CPA would be voting on the idea that the 100,000 in this fiscal year with a commitment to do 400 in the next 2 fiscal years, whereas the project would go, okay. I just wasn't sure if then it was.
The grant application to us is a $500,000 application.
Yeah.
We would set up a timeline for that, which is what I'd like you to do for the next meeting.
Yeah, and CPA can commit future funds.
Yeah, okay.
Whereas like city council can't commit future city council's funds. This CPA can actually say, we're voting now that this year we're doing 100,000, and then the next 2 budget years, we're committing 200,000 each of those budgets.
And
to be released when they request on the certificate of occupancy.
Yeah, but the CPA's, the funding.
Yes.
Would be part of the budget request and approved.
Yep.
And if you needed a letter or something, the CPA, I could sign that or something.
Well, I think in terms of the letter, what I was just going to throw myself into this mix is that if you vote in December, I know it's short time turnaround, but we will work pretty hard to get the $100,000 appropriation to city council voted and approved before February 15th. I think we can do that, and we would want to provide that to you, just like I think we would be working to get the appropriation completed for TCB on that same timeline, because I think what everyone wants to do is just eliminate the uncertainty, get it done so that it's in place, because I think there's a lot of other parts to focus on. So that's something that we've worked really well to. As a municipality, one of our biggest flaws is we are not fast. This is incredibly slow as it is. But anything we can do to make those timelines work, I think February is ideal. I think we can do that. So,
well, to be honest with you, I don't know what's going to happen, but I've always tried to move money as quickly as the government allows. You get it to this council, it's approved 2 weeks later, right? But don't know what's going to happen in the future. I think if you discuss that particular point with the president of the council in January. Make sure it's on the agenda and you need to get it through the process. We have Christmas and all that in the way, so. Greg?
So I understood the prior Kestrel was acquisition costs. I'm seeing acquisition costs here, but I'm also understanding this is a long-term lease. So can you just explain to me as a novice what acquisition costs for a project like this means when it's not the purchase of the actual property?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the partnership itself and the acquisition is really we have to enter into a long-term lease with, one industrial loss for 20 years. Yeah, 20 years. And then with that, it is a final acquisition price that goes after 20 years. We take over full ownership of the community and the site for one industrial loss.
So you think of it as a capitalized lease. So there's instead of paying equal payments monthly, quarterly, annually over those 20 years, there's a upfront capital payment and then ongoing payments that in total amount to the acquisition cost of the property.
This is a lease to own type.
Lease to own, yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, if you think about it, and if we would compare it, if we were to go out and do this on our own, it'd probably be a $54 million project. But because of the partnership with Mike and One Industrial, it allows us an opportunity to do a lease to own scenario and really, build something that, normally you can attest to this, 96 units in Western Mass doesn't really happen much. And it allows us to build something that's, unique and different and hopefully change the landscape of how affordable housing is built.
It's excellent.
So my follow-up question is that the 100,000 for what pre-planning or,
Pre-development design.
If the full project for some reason falls apart and that $100,000 is spent, that's money that we do not get back. So I just want, that's, whereas the Kestrel, and this isn't an either or, I like this project and I also like the prior project that we heard in favor of both. But I just want the committee to understand, we acquire a property with the Kestrel proposal. Here we put $100,000 forward and I'm always thinking about risk. There is some small percentage chance that 100,000 goes towards the project, and
I'd say there's risk on the other one too, though. If we're gonna pull $600,000 out of our community housing budget to give to Kestrel to own a piece of land, and then that project goes sideways, they own a piece of land and there's no housing.
Well, that depends on the bucket it's from. I mean,
If I can put it in perspective a little bit too, is our investment is, $750,000, right? So we wouldn't take on the risk unless we were pretty dang sure that this was gonna amount to something, right? Because our investment is, $800,000, $900,000. And
your risk is higher than ours.
Yeah. So, we wouldn't be here asking for your support. Again, it's the dollar value adds that additional oomph to a deal that makes the state recognize that this is serious and we want to make it happen. And without it, it's, we see a lot of these deals that people want it, but they don't want to put any skin in the game and they don't want to invest in it. And it makes it a lot harder. And for something this challenging, you need that financial investment. But yeah, I do agree with you. That's a great project, right? It's easy to, but you do just end up owning land at the end if it doesn't go through.
Well, we've always taken on a certain amount of risk in all the projects we do. Because we always try to leverage grants, for instance, and grants up to the state. My computer didn't like it. Anyway, anything else? Because we do have another project to talk about.
So remember, what was the time frame in the perfect world? This would be.
Yeah, so we're putting in our funding application. We would love to break ground in 2025, 2026. The duration of the project due to how it's being built will be very short. We're looking for probably a 1-year construction period. So, we would love to see people in units by 2026.
That's the most optimistic scenario.
Yeah.
Add a year to that and, probably we're about right.
Is Mike your general contractor, essentially?
No, so, that's the interesting part of it, and kudos to Mike for taking a step back and, and saying, listen, and again, like, we would not have done this without Mike, because, Mike has said that he believes in affordable housing, he wants affordable housing, and, he wants to be a partner in making that happen, but
it's not what he does.
he's frustrated most of the time, where I'm like, you know what, Mike, we're gonna do an RFP for a GC, we're gonna do an RFP for an architect, we're gonna consider everyone, but we want the best architect, the most, cost
I
effective.
just know if that was saving you money somehow to have him be your builder.
Well, it's saving us money to having a very sophisticated, partner,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Because I think that's putting a modular project of this scale together in a mill project like this is very challenging. And without him, I can't imagine us doing it.
Like the other project, I assume you'll probably be coming back to city council for CPA for additional.
That's an invite.
That's watch it, Joe.
Yeah, I think currently right now it's not what we're looking to do, but there are a lot of factors that play into construction and costs and projects like this, and so I can't rule it out at this point, but it's not what we're asking for right now.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, let's move on.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. The next project is the pool project. I'm gonna share the budget. John, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Hey, I go by the agenda.
This is why I'm virtual tonight. I knew it might have been a long one.
I am going to call up your request. John, why don't you talk us through it? Here's the budget, and I wanted to put that forward for everybody.
So this is the final piece of this overall project. As you guys have known, you've seen me several times through this project for funding. We have the CPA or the park grant for $400,000 for a total estimated cost of about 1.39. Today, just to give a little background on these numbers. Today, I had our pre-bid meeting for phase 2 for this portion of the funding. I believe it was a mandatory meeting. I had 4 contractors there. I believe there is some potential savings coming after clarification of the way the bid went out. So we're hoping to be under that number of request. And we will having the decision be in December 13th at the next CPA meeting. I will have the bid back that has been sent out regarding this. So I'll have hard numbers on the 13th.
Questions? Comments? Currently, in our undesignated fund, we have $319,000, so we don't have enough to do this. So everybody knows that. So we have to make a decision on whether or not we can fund it all. We also heard that we're getting something from Latham, which would come out of that. So I'm just putting that out there. I'm not making a judgment on what we should do.
And with that, I met with Jamie today. We have $27,000 left from our stone house building that I'd be willing to turn back at this point and then reapply to CPA next year after July 1 of next year. After this project gets to its conclusion, we're juggling a lot of balls here at Parks and Rec. So tabling that project until after July 1st and returning that money to free up some money towards the additional pool money is something we're willing to do at this point.
Okay. Maybe a little bit helps. Anybody on this? Jess is calculating. Yes, Mayor.
I'll wait for the board members.
I don't see anybody, so
Right.
Joe.
I'm sorry.
So John's gonna have a number for us December meeting. Are we supposed to vote on this that same night, or is there a time frame here?
Well, there's two things there. I think you should, only because it is the end of the quarter. And if you go to quarterly review of applications, which people want to do, that's when you would do it. But it looks like John's timeline, you would want this money in place for spring, right, John?
I have to have this money similar to what we did last time, where there was an earmark in place and CPA replaced the funding. This project has to be concluded by June 1 of 2024 per the park grant. If we do not complete it on time, the city will be on the hook for a percentage of that park grant coming back. So it has a financial ramification, and it has a optics ramification as well. If this is not completed on time for future park grants because of funding.
And I'm guessing he can't sign any contracts with any GCs until those funds are committed.
Correct.
So that's pretty timely as well.
Yeah. So what we did for the pool contract was there was some money within the city that could be put in place to do the South Shore Gunite contract to get them started on their project. And then when CPA funded the 400 in the last cycle, that money replaced it. So it kicked it right back to the city. That placeholder was there, but at least it gave us an opportunity to execute contracts because of the shade structures and the things that are going to be ordered for this project. Talking with the contractors today, they really have concerns about making sure contracts are executed after the bid is open to start ordering these things so it can be in place, because there's also a financial if they don't complete the work, there's a financial incentive for them to complete the work, or a penalty, I should say, if they don't complete the work by June 1. So there'll be a hard push once this moves forward.
So the 318 that we have in the account plus John's 27 brings the total amount to 345. John, based on your discussions with the GCs today, do you think that that's a range that you may end up?
Yes, I do. I reached out right after that meeting. I reached out to Beta, who is our consultant for this project, and told them there was some clarification issues. Mainly it was South Shore Gunite in the specs are removing of concrete, but the pool company that is currently there did much of that work because they needed to put the new lines in around the plumbing lines and around the pool. So much of that work is completed. Therefore, it does not need to be in phase 2's bid. So that's where we think we're going to be able to save some good dollars by doing some concrete cutting where it needs it, but not actual concrete replacement.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else?
There's nowhere else this money can come from, John?
The mayor answer that.
Yeah, that would be.
So God bless John, for me giving him a heart attack. We're pretty close. I'm pushing. I'm the one behind the CPA money, rather than free cash. And the reason why is, one, I think that this project and the money that we've asked for is commensurate with other projects that we put money in, including to the East Street property and whatnot. This is a huge thing for Easthampton. The pool and bringing it and keeping it up has been difficult to keep that funded. Also, I don't want to touch free cash for this amount of money, or something that can be funded by CPA. And I'm doing this with other projects because we are going out to bond in April for the rest of the school. And we will also be looking at a secondary bond to do the maintenance and offices over at the park and put up a new building. So I know I can go after the recreation money for the pool. It's tight, but it allows me not to touch reserves, free cash, and go for the highest possible bond rating that we possibly can get for that bonding in April. Is why, and the original intent was to look at free cash. And I think that's how one of the applications or documents, right, John, that you submitted said free cash for this. And I changed it. I'm very, for financial plan around that, to not touch. Our reserves are very high. And I need to be able to say honestly that I have no capital project that needs that money to be spent before we go to bond in April.
So you need it for your bond rating, basically. You need to show that you've got the cash on hand and then you have to spend it.
Yep.
So,
And so CPA money doesn't, like, if it's up or it's down or whatnot, doesn't touch the bond rating.
Yeah, my concern is the CPA money seems to be going out of here quicker than,
Anything else.
than a dam breaking in the forest somewhere. That's all.
I mean, I would just only offer that CPA is not a reserve account. And it's not something that we automatically come back to fix things. And we have spent a lot of money for a lot of great things, and that's what CPA is for. And I would just ask this committee to understand and take a look at our reserves. They are very high. We're way over 15%. I'm happy to present that at the next meeting. And I'm purposely doing that. So if something does go sideways, whether it's recreation, open space or whatnot, or to be honest, some of the projects we talked about tonight, that we have, the city has little room not to come back to this committee and use it that way. It's also looking into, there are 2 loan programs that have just come available for housing through USDA, and it's at 3.75 interest rate. So I'm not promising, but I am hoping on these last 2 projects that can afford that we can figure out another mechanism to supplement rather than CPA, because I know there are smaller projects coming. I totally understand. I hear it's standing on thin ice.
After April, once you get your bond in place, would you be willing to free up some of that free cash? You know, if there's a project that came before us and we're out of money. I mean, it sounds to me it's more of a timing thing.
It's a timing thing, and candidly, the Kestrel project is expensive, and there's a lot of ask out of this committee. I think it's really important to the city, and I think the city should jump into that a little more out of other reserves. And then maybe Ferry Street. And I think that ask that, you know, you're talking about the city coming to the table with money other than CPA. I don't see how that project happens without doing that.
Which project?
Yeah, the Kestrel. I just don't. I mean, it's a huge ask, and they explain.
Just to be clear, the affordable housing account could only be used for those 2 projects.
Right.
We can't use that money for the pool project. We could only use what's left in undesignated.
right.
Just so you know that's
That's the thing.
Right, but it just means that as a committee, after December, we're out of cash for 6 months.
Right.
Well, we'd be out of cash even, we're 245 short of this, even with the 20, right? I mean, so.
No, we have 318.
318 plus 27 is 345. If it's a 5.
He's saying that his bids are gonna come in
590.
lower than.
Okay.
He's asking
Okay.
for 3.
But it's not gonna come in 245 lower, right? I mean,
No, he's not looking for that. He's only looking
He's
for
looking for-
360,000.
Over 360.
I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong number.
Right here.
Okay,
380,000.
so, okay.
Maybe we should pass the hat.
But we're still,
Pass that hat to the city. And as well, we're using the last bit of our ARPA money to actually back up the first part of this project, so we could sign a contract. So as that goes forward, that money frees up, and we've, you know, the way it was, the ARPA money was doled out is it followed housing plan and open space plan, where all of the projects that the community said were really important was how things were funded. And the last bit of it could help these two projects or other things, there's no restriction on how we spend the rest of the ARPA money. I would just need a recommendation to CPA saying we're short or we don't want to get rid of all of the money.
Well, we have, I'll just put it out there. We have Lathrop Home coming. Right?
Yeah,
So you guys have to decide. I'm not gonna be here. I like everything. Seriously, affordable housing is huge. And the pool is huge. That is a major element for our inner city residents who can't go anywhere else. They don't have a pool in their backyard. We need this pool.
Oh, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
obviously, and Lathrop Home with the native planting, I mean, how can you say no to anything? And that's the problem, but we ran out of cash.
I think we can discuss it because it was on the agenda. Basic thing is great, but you gotta realize it's not somebody sneaking in at night planting it. These are carried by water and by birds. And so I wonder, after that $100,000 investment, when is it going to be back? It is going to come back.
Well, wait, time, open meeting law. It's not on the agenda.
Yeah.
So I would rather us, I just want to be.
Oh, that was public speaking.
Public speech. She came and told us about it. But for the way you guys should look at is people should come to Jamie and say, we're gonna be applying 2 months from now for this. So that you have a good picture in the next fiscal year of
I
what's
mean,
coming.
I will tell you, as one who has gone through the process in Amherst, they do it once a year.
Well, that's stupid.
Yeah, but it makes it, I mean, I love the flexibility. Coming from my developer side, I love the flexibility that you can come in at any time here in
Right,
Easthampton. However, the flip side of being on the committee is that we don't have a crystal ball and we don't know what's coming.
Well, I
And there
think-
will be some great project that shows up in March and we'll be like,
We'll be out.
sorry.
Well,
And
we-
this
that's
is
on the
just a
agenda too,
limited- This is
right?
just a limited.
Well, I think the
resource.
quarterly
This is
plan that's on the agenda is a good idea.
Yeah.
I'd like to postpone that discussion until the next meeting because this is really late. So we have all the
Is there a
information.
Celtics game on, Dan?
Actually, football,
Yeah.
football game, but who's really
I
keeping,
am-
you guys fantasy football?
I
And who's
Seriously,
got
I
the quarterback tonight for the Bengals?
All right. Jeff,
Thanks. I know you just tried to close the meeting, but
I didn't close the meeting
You know,
yet.
I participated in a lot of these discussions as well. And so, you know, I was part of the meeting with John and Jamie today, and just two other quick things. You know, we were looking at other projects that are out there, and, you know, John and Jamie were talking about the Stone House. I don't remember, Jamie, if there was a fine point question on that, but there is another.
We resolved it.
What's that?
We resolved it. It
We
was
resolved
funded with open space funding,
Okay.
so it would go back to open space.
Great. So there's at least one other project that the planning department was holding on to, funds for, which is, associated with the Barachowski parcel. So if you're not familiar with the Broad Brook Forest on Hendrick Street, we have $25,000 held to try to come up with a repair of the existing trails that got blown down in the 2015 microburst. That project is a little bit in a stalemate. There's endangered species habitat that has made it just difficult to relaunch that project. So I am willing to have a conversation about closing that project out with a note that we may come back at some future date to reaccess some of that fund, but that might free up some. And if I understood John correctly, if he's opening bids on December 6th and can come and can wait till December 13th, we would actually have a pretty clear picture of what is necessary. And I think there might even be, in my observation of the public speak item, was that maybe there's a conversation about funding that in a phase or two, because they mentioned a 3-year project. So there's a possibility with some of this, with a little bit refined information, the committee might actually be able to fund all of this, and then maybe a portion of that last project. And I would just put one more plug in to at least 2 quarterly applications, because, for example, right now we are considering applying for a Mass Trails grant to repair the Manhattan Rail.
Not on the agenda.
Well, it's just information that there could be other projects that come forward, and it will have to be something that the committee grapples with. But I think the quarterly is a great way to keep it flexible.
The quarterly is on the agenda. We're just not gonna make a decision tonight. That's all I ask. But I think it is something.
No, but if it takes 2 meetings for us, if we hear all the applicants that, and then we take 2 meetings to decide, that's the quarter, and then we do it again.
Well, let's just finish, I think we should finish parks and then.
For what it's worth, that's how we used to do it.
Yeah.
That's what the rules said.
That's what we were, yes. So Dan showed up.
Until Dan went rogue on us.
Guys, you all voted on anything that happened. I don't get to make decisions by myself. Jesus. Anyway, John, do you have anything else, before we go?
No, so I think, to piggyback Jeff just said, I think having hard numbers in place and then meeting with Jamie and coming together and even if with the mayor as well and coming with a package for the 13th meeting makes the most sense of where we are for hard numbers. This is what is available and this is where we're going to piece it together and fund this. And then my thing is just to make sure I have a placeholder in place so I can get bids, the contract signed and out.
Okay.
And Stonehouse, I think you'd be well served by bringing that back to us.
Yes, I will. So just a quick update on that. We got approved for state historical. It's heading to the National Registry to get on the National Registry for historical sites. So it is still moving. That project, it's just a matter of construction phase. I would push off till after July 1 for more requests, I should say.
You got enough things going on in the park, huh?
Yeah, now you have a pickleball donation account we just approved. Sorry, threw that out there. Okay, we've listened to everything. December 13th. Everybody's committed to being here. I'd like it to be. So I can say goodbye to all of you.
There you go. Can we just do 2 minutes on the quarterly now that that's closed?
Yes.
It was on the agenda.
I know. I just think it should be quarterly.
I agree with you. I think a lot of people do. The only thing I would say is, if that, I know we would talk about potentially like putting a threshold of, because I feel like Jeff, for instance, has come at something like, hey, we have this thing that we need something really quick for a low dollar
If
amount.
we don't get the money now, we can't get the
Right. So if it's like, it's essentially guidelines of like, if it's lower than.
We have that rule in place.
The rule's already there.
The lower amount, I forget the dollar amount, can be approved. If it's higher, it has to be 2 meetings.
Right.
What we're doing though is adding, if it's like, let's just say this quarter, October, November, December. If this came to us in October and we made a decision, say the first meeting in November, we couldn't make that decision with the new rule until December, because that's the quarter. We listen to it, we talk about it in 2 meetings, and then we make a decision. And that meeting in December doesn't look at, my suggestion to you would be, don't look at new applications. Go over all the ones that are in front of you and make a final decision at the quarterly level. There may be other applications. It depends on how many things you have to deal with that you've already talked about.
Well, it's an anomaly. That's the word I'm trying to say.
Anomaly.
Thank you. I mean, we haven't had affordable housing projects like this happen before, and a lot of it's to the credit of the mayor and the planning department to push these things forward and to negotiate. But this may be a blip, and then we may not see anything again for a long time. So, just saying.
What really scares me for you guys is the state budget. It's scary now. If they're in such a deficit, I don't know. And the thing is, the CPA funds are based on deed.
Yeah.
And
we're
not selling homes, right?
No, we're not.
Mayor.
I would just say that the deficit that's being reported out about the state is a deficit in comparison to the last 2 fiscal years, which were unbelievably unnaturally high. So we're in a fine place. I mean, the CPA, that was news to me, and
that just came out today.
I don't know. I emailed and said, "What are you doing?" But it could just be an anomaly. Like, how much more can we build it?
I'm assuming they have rainy day money too. I mean, if they had such a surplus, they didn't put some aside in case of this. I mean, I would have.
I'm not the head of administration and finance, and I don't want to be, and I'm just gonna hope for the best, but I do think that they will come through with the CPA match.
Okay.
Yeah.
They kind of voted to promise 30% at minimum, didn't they? They voted on that, the state legislature at one point, but of course they don't have to do
Then
it.
the interest rates climbed to over 7%. People stopped buying homes.
Right. Got it.
Just, I guess, because our rules are, and we never really changed that we had to do it quarterly. I guess really what I'm saying is if like new applicants come to you, to just give them a heads up that this is a direction, if we're all in that similar mindset, that this is the direction the committee is going, just so that like someone, I want to.
Already on the application.
So, I mean, it was there from previous to 2020. I think I have to go back and look at exactly what the rules say, but I thought it was quarterly, except as exceptions. And then I think it might have been changed to rolling based off of the conversation that we had.
Well, more, I just think the more people could kind of have an understanding of that before they arrived here.
Well,
that this is actually, even especially since we see a lot of the same applicants, that this is something actually we're going to be doing more.
Decisions will be made in September and
Applications are due on
December.
this date and the decisions will be made on this date.
And we can refine it. I just, even before the December, who knows what's going to come in before the December meeting. And so,
Well, I guess I would say, is this something that really the new committee, because there's going to be some change in membership in January. And is that something that the
Only
January?
change is one person, right? Is anybody quitting? Please say no. Okay, so
What, the
it's
benefits?
me.
You kidding me? How would we leave? Vacation package? Retirement? Are you kidding me?
There you go. All right, seriously, you have a new member from the council.
So that's,
All right.
would you want me to put, we'll look at the rules?
I
think Scott's
like,
general spirit is if we're receiving in the next couple months, you can say we may be changing our, I mean, I don't think you need to be much more specific, but just frame it so that there's an expectation that this could be
Manage the
moving
expectations.
to a quarterly.
may I say that the best time for you to
thanks,
do
Greg.
is January. Make the decision in January to go
I
to a
agree.
quarterly.
Sure.
I agree.
Go back to quarter.
Go back.
Or
Follow our own rules.
just follow. That's really what it is, right? All right.
I guess I'm just a bad guy. Anybody have anything else?
Can I just throw one thing out? And I got the Bengals quarterback tonight, just so you know. But anyway, can we reconsider the automatic set aside for the town hall? Because that's like $250 that automatically goes out. And
I think
should we not start thinking about
That's
whether we want to do it or whether we don't want to do it, depending on, since we're.
well, that's the budget,
Yeah,
and I think it is something you should consider.
That's always for discussion in the budget. So I think we'll be looking at.
That automatic set aside might be going to affordable housing.
Right, I just didn't know how that'll work. Just quickly throwing money.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think, from my point of view, and I'm a big city space fan, but that money now needs to go to these affordable housing projects. So when you get the budget, you put it wherever you think you need it. Don't worry about that. If they come back for more money, then you discuss that.
I just have a question in terms of your position. So the city council appointee, is it somebody who's on the finance committee?
It's the finance committee chair or
Okay.
his or her designee.
Okay,
It has to be someone from
From
finance.
finance.
That's
good. That makes me feel
That's
better.
the-
Okay, good.
the ordinance, I think. We have an
Okay.
ordinance on CPA,
All right.
and it's most likely going to be Tom Peak.
Oh,
Okay.
But he does not have to chair the committee.
No,
The chair can be anyone.
Hi, Scott.
But it might be
I
someone-
ran one meeting. There was like nothing on the agenda. It was like 15 minutes. Remember that? It was on Zoom. It was great.
People will love you.
Yeah. It was great. There was like nothing about it.
Why this is supposed to be no money and nothing for you?
Yeah, right.
Can I have a motion to adjourn? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Hi.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.